Hello, and welcome. I want to begin with a question that, in my opinion, defines many of the dilemmas of our modern lives. Have you ever felt pressured to do something that goes against your values? Have you ever felt that to get that job, to be accepted in a group, to advance in your career, you would need to bend, even a little, to the conscience or practices of the world around you? The pressure to fit in, to adapt, to not be different is one of the greatest giants we face today. And this pressure leads us to a crossroads. Will I be true to who I am and what I believe? Or will I be accepted and loved by everyone around me, even if it costs me my integrity? The truth is, we live in a world where integrity is often seen as a weakness. Being principled, valued, and faithful can put you at odds with a system that values success at any cost. But what if I told you there's a story, a narrative of a young man who was taken captive to a foreign land and, amidst the pressure of one of the greatest powers in history, decided to bow down, to compromise? To translate, what if this story showed us that resilience isn't the absence of pressure, but the ability to stand firm, to stand tall, even when the whole world is bowing down? Today, we're going to delve into Daniel's story, but not in the way you've heard. I want us to see Daniel's life as a practical guide for navigating a world of compromise, so that we, like him, can learn to maintain integrity, be a voice of courage, and trust God amidst any pressure life throws at us. Daniel's story begins with tragedy and exile. He and his three friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, were young princes taken captive from Jerusalem to Babylon, a pagan land, an empire of idolatry, under the reign of the powerful king Nebuchadnezzar. They were far from their home, their culture, their religion, and they were chosen, along with other young men, to participate in a 3-year program to serve the king. They were to be trained in the culture and language of the Babylonians. They were given new Babylonian names to erase their identity, and they were offered the king's food and wine. And here lies the first and greatest test of Daniel's integrity: the pressure to assimilate, to blend in, to forget who they were was enormous. Just as the king's food, which had been consecrated to pagan gods, was the first step in erasing their identity. But Daniel, with his unshakable faith, made a decision. He purposed in his heart not to defile himself with the portion of the king's food or with the wine he drinks. He and his friends politely and respectfully, but firmly asked the chief eunuch, the man in charge of them, to give them only vegetables and water to eat. The chief eunuch, fearing that they would look worse than the other young men had they decided to do so, proposed a test. "Test your servants for 10 days, and give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then see before you how we look and how the young men who eat the king's food look, and as you see, deal with your servants." And the result? After 10 days, Daniel and his friends looked healthier and stronger than all the other young men. Their integrity did not weaken them, it strengthened them. And here lies the first fundamental lesson about integrity. Integrity is not an act of rebellion, but an act of inspiration. Integrity is not an end in itself, but obedience to God even when no one is looking. Daniel did not choose to eat the king's food out of pride, but because he wanted to honor God. And God, in his faithfulness, honored Daniel and his friends. The Bible tells us that God gives him knowledge and understanding in all literature and wisdom, and to Daniel in particular, God gave him the ability to interpret dreams. Daniel's integrity was not isolated, it elevated him. His choice not to bow down put him in a position of influence for the nation. And the story of Daniel continues with his wisdom in action. King Nebuchadnezzar had a disturbing dream, and he wanted not only an interpretation of the dream, but also the magicians and certainties of Babylon to tell him what the dream was. But no one could, and the king, in his fury, tried to have all the truths of his kingdom killed. And Daniel, in his wisdom and courage, presented himself to the king. And after praying, God revealed the dream and its interpretation to him. Daniel interpreted the king's dream and the announcement of his destiny. He was not flattered. He was honest and bold, and God honored him. And the king, in his gratitude, made him governor over the entire province of Babylon and head of all wealth. But the integrity of Daniel and his friends would be tested again. King Nebuchadnezzar built a golden statue and planned to have all peoples and nations bow down before it. It was an act of idolatry. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's three friends, refused to bow down. And the king, in his fury, confronted them. "Is it on purpose that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image I have set up?" And they, with unwavering faith, gave one of the most passionate responses in the entire Bible. They said, "We do not need to answer in this matter. Our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, know this, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image you have set up." And herein lies the essence of resilience. They didn't say that God would deliver them. They said that God could deliver them. And even if he didn't, they wouldn't bow. Their faith wasn't a bargain. Their faith wasn't based on the outcome. Their faith was based on God's faithfulness regardless of the circumstances. And the king, in his fury, ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter and threw them into the furnace. But something extraordinary happened. The men they threw into the furnace died from the heat, and the 3 friends inside weren't alone. The king looked into the furnace and saw 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire without doing any harm, and the appearance of the 4th is like the Son of God. And they emerged from the furnace without even the smell of smoke on their clothes. Their integrity didn't protect them from the fire, but God protected them in the fire. And this teaches us that our faith doesn't exempt us from life's pressures, but enables us to endure them. Daniel's story holds yet another lesson in resilience. Decades later, Daniel, an elderly man, was involved with a new king, Darius, and he, by his excellence, was the most influential of all the king's officials. And the other officials, filled with jealousy, devised a plan to overthrow him. They convinced the king to obey a decree forbidding anyone from praying to any god or man except the king for 30 days. What happened to Daniel? He learned of the decree. He knew the king, by law, could not revoke it, but he did not hide. He was not intimidated. He did not close his windows. He went to his house, opened the windows facing Jerusalem, and prayed to God 3 times a day, as he always did. He did not negotiate his intimidation with God to protect himself from the pressure of the world. And for that, he was thrown into the lion's den. But what happened? King Darius, who loved and respected Daniel, was desperate. He spent the night fasting. The next morning, he ran to the den and cried out, "Daniel, servant of the living God, could your God whom you serve continually deliver you from the lions?" And Daniel, in his serenity, replied, "O king, live forever. My God envied his angel and shut the lions' mouths so they would not harm me." His integrity didn't deliver him from the den, but God delivered him in the den. And this teaches us that our greatest security is not in human power, laws, or decrees, but in God's faithfulness. His approval may lead you to the den, but God gives you victory in it. Daniel's story teaches us that resilience isn't the absence of pressure, but the ability to stand firm. It teaches us that integrity is a daily choice, not a one-time event, and that we don't need to bow to culture, but can influence it with our faith. If Daniel's story resonated with you today, and if you're struggling to maintain your integrity in a world of pressure, I invite you to take action. Leave a comment below. Share what your lion's den is and how your faith in God is helping you stand firm. Your story could be the inspiration someone needs to not give in. And if you want more stories like this that guide your faith and give you courage, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. In our next video, we'll explore Elijah's vision, finding strength in the midst of spiritual burnout. Thank you for being here with me. May Daniel's journey inspire you to have the courage to stand tall in a world that asks you to bow down. Until next time.